Hey, entrepreneurs, this week we're going to take a look at the statement from Dan Martell in his book, Buy Back Your Time, in which he says that the biggest mistake he sees for entrepreneurs is that when they hire, they're hiring first to try to grow their business, when in his opinion, you should always hire first to buy back the time of the entrepreneur, of the business owner. And so we're going to take a look at whether or not that's good advice. If you're really trying to scale your business, if you're trying to reach for a high, hard goal for yourself, should you buy back your own time, or should you always be focused on the growth? What is the truth about that? And to be able to answer that question, I want to first just remind you of the high-level principle of the theory of constraints. So theory of constraints, this concept from Eliyahu Goldratt, this is just a simple concept that it's easier to understand if you look at it in the context of manufacturing. So if this is a bottle manufacturing plant, and we're thinking about trying to improve this process, the speed at which we're able to generate money is dependent on how many boxes of bottles can we produce per hour, right? And so we have all of these little pieces of, these are like steps in the process of manufacturing. We've got the raw inventory coming in, somebody has got to do the QA, quality assurance for that material. Then you're producing the bottles, then you're producing the labels, then you're producing the cap that goes on top, packaging it up. And here's the key concept from theory of constraints, is that you would not improve your productivity one bit if you focus on any aspect of that process that is not the constraint, that is not the bottleneck. Because if in this process you don't focus on the weakest link, and I'm representing the speed per hour of each of these steps relative to the concept of producing one bottle. So if we said the QA, if we can bring in raw inventory for 1,000 bottles per day easily with our current systems, but we can only, our quality assurance guys can only get through enough material for producing 100 bottles per day, then it really doesn't matter if we double our speed of producing labels, or we add staff who can help run machines to produce bottles faster. That won't improve the bottom line, the throughput, one bit, because it's limited by this step, right? We'll never go faster than 100 bottles per hour. And let's say we solve that, then the next smallest is producing the caps. So it doesn't make sense to buy more label making machines until we've doubled or tripled the caps. And of course, there's all this nuance to theory of constraints. For example, one of the things that you should always do is first, before you elevate the constraint, there's a process that you want to go through to make sure that you have ensured, for example, that there's always enough product in backlog before wherever your constraint is, because the last thing we want to do is take the spot in our process that is the weak point and have that machine sitting idle because we didn't order enough product, right? That would be financially a really, really bad decision, because it costs $0 to make sure that we've brought in enough inventory in advance to make sure that this machine is never sitting there idle, right? And so there's steps like that you can take. But this concept of theory of constraints, if we take this and we apply it to the question, should you always hire to save yourself time first as the entrepreneur, or should you hire in order to grow your business? That question depends on two things. It depends on, one, are you working at 100% capacity already? And two, are you part of the constraint? Are you in this process somewhere and you are the constraint? And that often happens, but one of the things I tell entrepreneurs is work at 80% capacity, not 100% capacity. Because what I found is, over the years, I've worked with high-level entrepreneurs all around the world, and one of the things I've noticed is that the guys who make the fastest progress and achieve the biggest results are the ones who are working at 80% capacity. They're not maxing out. They're not trying to go for 110% capacity. And we've talked about some of the reasons why, but one of them is because planning goes out the window. Things like looking at the theory of constraints and examining this kind of stuff, this kind of high-level thinking where you slow down to speed up, it prevents you from doing dumb stuff like rushing around to try to improve your label making process, or trying to fix that as fast as you can when it's temporarily down, when your energy really should be going to alleviating the constraint. And so we don't slow down to think when we're working at 100% capacity. We grab onto opportunities that look great because we're trying to be productive when we're working at 100% capacity. And so we miss the better opportunities that we could have tackled if we had the financial and time resources to allocate to those new opportunities when they came along down the line. These are some of the concepts I teach to the entrepreneurs that I work with, that I learned from the entrepreneurs that I work with. So I consider myself a student of peak productivity. I'm always learning these new concepts. But if we blend these two answers together, you'll see that the answer to our initial question of, is Dan Martell's statement that you should always hire to save yourself time first or hire to grow, it really depends on question one. Are you working at 80% capacity or above already? Or I should say 80% or below already. And if the answer to that is yes, then we can look at this and say, well, then where is the bottleneck? And if it involves you, then yes, we should hire somebody to save you time so that you can do something, the thing that you do best, the highest and best skill set that you have to bring to your company. So you're not spending your time doing the admin stuff that really would be better done by someone that for perhaps that's their best skill set, right? So what we want to do is first ask that question, are you working at 80% or above? If you are, let's hire somebody, take some time back so that you can do this kind of planning. And if that question is out of the way, then it becomes a question of, well, where's the constraint? And sometimes the constraint is going to be something that allows your business to grow. And if you're working at 50% capacity and you're just kind of overseeing this whole process, but you're not holding anything back, then we don't necessarily need to hire someone to just save you time on the things that you're already doing as the high-level consultant and the thinking strategist for your business. It would be actually better for us to spend your money to hire people to help these QA guys process that material faster, because that leads to the bigger dollar output that creates the snowball effect, where you can then hire more people to help you address the next constraint, which produces more income. And that snowball just keeps rolling faster and faster until people ask, how can you get so much done? And the answer is, well, you always just focused on the one thing, the highest leverage thing that would allow you to unlock more revenue, that you then repeat that process until you build a kind of momentum that makes it look like magic to others. But really there was a system, there was a process to determining where your time, energy, and financial resources should go. So here's your challenge this week. Ask yourself those questions. Do I have revenue to hire somebody to help us grow? If I do, then what is the next question we should ask? It's about your time. If you're not working at 80% capacity, if you're constantly just barely able to keep up, let's hire someone to save you some time. And if that's not the case, you've already sorted that one out, then let's take a look at theory of constraints to decide if there's an opportunity to hire someone to allow you to grow your business's impact. Talk to you again next week.